Chosen one, you are not here by accident. Heaven orchestrated this exact moment in time. The breath you just took, the blink you just made, the thought that almost made you scroll away. Everything in your life has been converging on this point. Archangel Michael is standing closer to you than your own shadow, and what he carries is not vague comfort, but a precise verdict. In the span of what feels like only a couple of minutes from now, every curse that was launched against your life, every whispered word, every hidden ritual, every jealous intention will begin to reverse and travel back to the ones who sent it. But before that happens, there are things you must understand, because heaven does not waste revelation on a distracted heart. You can sense it already, that strange pressure building in your chest, that almost electric weight in the room around you. That is not anxiety, that is recognition. Something in you has been waiting for language for what you have lived through, and right now, heaven is putting words to your wounds. This is not a generic message. It is targeted, tailored, precision-guided towards someone whose life has been quietly screaming for justice. There are two great threads woven through what you are about to hear. One thread is ancient, the way Jesus himself closed each day of his earthly life, the 4 things he did before sleep that kept his spirit anchored while hell did everything it could to break him. Those 4 nightly actions will be revealed, every one of them, but not yet, because if you heard them too soon, you would turn them into empty rituals instead of living keys. The second thread looks forward, 3 morning actions, small enough to seem insignificant, powerful enough to shift atmospheres around your life for the rest of your days. Their time is coming too. Between these 2 threads lies your story, and the story of some people you thought you knew. Look at your own life for a moment. Look at the pattern, not just the events. Doors that should have opened, closing at the last second. People who promised to stand with you, vanishing when you needed them most. Opportunities that seemed sent by God, turning out to be traps that stole your strength, your peace, your resources. You told yourself it was bad luck, wrong timing, your own mistakes. You blamed yourself because that felt safer than facing the possibility that there were hands, familiar hands, pushing you toward the edge. You had reasons to suspect. Tiny glitches in the way certain people looked at you when you spoke about your dreams. Jokes that landed just a little too sharp. Conversations that stopped when you entered the room. You felt it in your gut, that quiet voice saying, "Something is wrong here," but there was never enough proof to name it. And when you tried to talk about it, you were called sensitive, dramatic, ungrateful. Family would never do that to you. Someone who loves you would never intentionally hurt you. So you swallowed your suspicions, and with them, your pain. Heaven did not. There are 2 people at the center of what happened to you. The enemy you could see was never the real threat. The true danger came in a pair. One carried your blood, the other carried the appearance of love. Together, they formed a quiet conspiracy that hijacked 10 years of your life. One you called brother, the other you called answer to prayer. Both were sent to ensure you never step fully into what heaven wrote over your name. The brother's story began long before the legal theft. It began the day the patriarch of your family placed his hand on your head and spoke blessing over you. You remember that day, even if the memory feels blurred at the edges. The room smelled faintly of medicine and cologne. The air was heavy with the awareness that these might be among his final words. He looked into your eyes with a clarity that defied his failing body and said words that seared themselves into your bones, that you were meant to carry the name forward, that you had a mantle others did not, that heaven had singled you out not for comfort, but for purpose. Your brother heard enough. He was in the hallway just outside the door, pretending not to listen. The moment those words reached his ears, something dark and old in his heart twisted. Jealousy is never just an emotion. It is a doorway. When it is not confronted, it invites counsel from voices that do not belong to God. Thoughts started to circle in his mind that felt like his own, but were not. Why him and not you? You have done more. You stayed closer. You are more practical, more deserving. If you don't act, everything that should be yours will be taken. He did not recognize those whispers for what they were. He agreed with them. Agreement is permission. When he nodded internally to that narrative, he handed over access to a spirit older than your family name, a spirit that had watched brothers destroy brothers since Cain looked at Abel and decided the earth would be better without him. The spirit of jealous sabotage took its post. From that day forward, your brother began to position himself. He drove the patriarch to appointments, handled errands, sat in on meetings, built a reputation as the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who understood how the world really works. Each small act of helpfulness was also a brick in the image he was crafting for the people who would later matter most: the lawyers, the advisors, the extended family who would one day nod when he said, "Trust me, I know what he really wanted." When the time came to draft the will, your brother already had the access he needed. The initial document reflected what the patriarch had spoken over you. An inheritance weighted in your favor, resources aligned with your calling, a tangible sign that heaven's choice over your life would also be honored on paper. For 3 days, those words sat in ink like a contract in the spiritual realm. On the 4th day, your brother made his move. He visited the lawyer alone. The office was quiet, blinds tilted half-closed, the air stale with recycled HVAC and old coffee. He came carrying a set of papers in one hand and an easy smile on his face. The papers looked almost identical to the ones the patriarch had signed. Same format, same language, same clauses, except for 3 lines. 3 small, surgically altered lines that rerouted the river of inheritance away from you and toward him. 3 lines. That was all it took to rewrite a decade of your future. The lawyer, already softened by months of your brother's charm and carefully cultivated confidence, did not ask too many questions. The signature, he was told, needed to be cleaned up. Some minor technical correction, a quick fix. He adjusted the file, replaced the pages, filed the new version. The original was quietly destroyed. What remained in the record was a will that said your portion would be modest, almost symbolic, while your brother's slice increased in a way he would later explain to the family as only fair, given my responsibilities. You had no idea. While ink dried on the edited document, you were probably doing something ordinary, washing dishes, sending an email, thinking about next week's plans, completely unaware that the ground beneath your financial life had been shifted. The consequences didn't hit all at once. That's the cruelty of it. At first it looked like small frustrations, a promotion that fell through at the last minute, an investment that underperformed, a collaboration that dissolved without clear reason. One by one, the doors that should have opened stayed shut. Opportunities slipped away like water through your fingers. You worked, you prayed, You did everything you knew to do, and still, lack hung around your life like a fog. Years went by. Every time you saw your brother at family gatherings, he played his role to perfection. He asked how you were doing, tilted his head with practiced concern when you mentioned another difficult month, another delay, another almost breakthrough. Sometimes he would offer small help, a loan here, a gift there, always just enough to keep you grateful, never enough to make you independent. "I wish I could do more," he would say, expression painted with regret. But times are hard for everyone. You believed him because the alternative, that he had stolen what was meant for you and was now using a fraction of your own inheritance to keep you beneath him, was too monstrous to consider. He thought the theft was complete. He thought his secret was secure. But heaven is not blind ink on paper. Heaven reads hearts, not just contracts. And unseen by both of you, a quiet variable entered the equation. There was a witness, not in the room, not seated at the lawyer's desk, not on any security footage. This witness was in the building by what they thought was coincidence, there to see a different attorney about an unrelated matter. They passed by the open office door at the moment your brother slid the new pages across the desk. They noticed, for a fraction of a second, the way the lawyer frowned in confusion, the way your brother leaned in with that persuasive intensity you knew so well. They did not understand what they were seeing, not then. It filed itself in their mind as a strange little memory, one of those details you only remember later when it suddenly matters. Years went by. They said nothing. You kept struggling. Your brother kept rising. And then, many years after ink, paper, and betrayal had lined up in your absence, this witness had a dream. In the dream, they stood in a room that was both a courtroom and a temple. There was a bench, but no visible judge, only a sense of presence that filled the space with an almost unbearable gravity. On one side, your brother stood behind a table covered in documents. On the other, you stood alone, empty-handed, yet strangely at peace. Above you both, a sword hung suspended in the air, its tip pointing not at you, but at the stack of papers your brother was gripping so tightly his knuckles turned white. A voice, calm, unstoppable, spoke from everywhere at once. What was signed in darkness will be judged in light. The witness woke trembling, heart pounding. Your brother's face and your empty hands burned into their mind. They tried to shake it off for days, but the image stalked them. Every time they passed that old building in waking life, the weight of that dream sat heavier on their chest. Finally, they broke. They told someone, and that someone knew exactly which lawyer to call. All of this, the original blessing, the altered will, the unknowing witness, the dream, was part of one long, carefully timed line moving toward this moment. You have been living in the fallout of 3 lines of text for a decade, calling it bad luck when it was theft, blaming yourself when it was sabotage. You are about to watch every piece of that scheme unravel in front of you. But before justice lands on your brother's doorstep, heaven wants you to understand something even darker. He was not working alone, even if he never met the one who helped finish the job. Because while he was cutting off your financial inheritance, someone else was quietly strangling your relational and reputational inheritance. She didn't walk into your life like a villain. If she had, you would have recognized her. She arrived as a prayer answered. The timing felt poetic. You were tired, wounded. A few years into financial strain you couldn't quite explain. Loneliness had become a constant background noise. You'd told God you were fine on your own, but in the quiet, it ached. When she appeared, attentive, understanding, almost eerily aligned with your unspoken needs, it felt like heaven had finally noticed the part of you that was still bleeding. She listened to you in a way no one else seemed willing to. She remembered details. She asked follow-up questions. She said the things you had always wanted someone to say. I see you. You're not crazy. You were meant for more. It felt like relief, like exhaling after holding your breath for years. You began to share childhood wounds, family stories, fears you kept hidden. She nodded, eyes soft with what you read as compassion. She shouldn't have known as much as she did. She knew which uncle was always cold to you, which cousin resented you, which childhood teacher cut you down in front of the class. She knew the exact phrasing of certain hurtful sentences you thought you had never repeated out loud. When you asked her how she could possibly understand so much, she smiled with an almost shy pride. I'm just intuitive, she said. I feel things deeply. Intuition doesn't give you exact quotes and private details. Information does. Long before she ever spoke to you, she had been watching you from a distance, watching what you posted and what you carefully didn't, watching who liked your updates and who never appeared, watching the subtle dynamics in photos, the way you stood in group pictures, who your body leaned toward, who you subconsciously avoided. She had help. People you both knew casually, people who thought they were just sharing stories. In every conversation about you, she played the role of concerned outsider, asking just enough questions to learn what she needed without raising suspicion. Isolation was phase one. It never starts with open attacks. It starts with seeds. That friend of yours, I don't think they really support you. Your family takes you for granted. I'm not saying cut them off. I'm just saying protect your energy. You heard this often enough that after a while, the idea didn't sound like a suggestion, but like wisdom. You began to pull back. One less text replied to, one declined invitation, one holiday skipped because it's too much drama. You told yourself you were choosing peace. In reality, you were being maneuvered away from every person who might have seen through her performance. Once she was the only voice you really trusted, phase two began. Money never came up as a demand. She wasn't that clumsy. Instead, crises appeared like storm clouds, sudden medical emergencies, family members in supposed trouble, opportunities she couldn't take alone. Each situation was wrapped in language that triggered your protective instincts. I hate asking you for this. I feel so ashamed. You're the only one I can trust with this. You stepped in because that's who you are. Generous, self-sacrificing, willing to bleed so others don't have to. One wire transfer at a time, one cleared savings account after another. Your financial stability eroded. You reassured yourself that true love holds nothing back. That partnership means carrying burdens, that God would surely replenish what you poured out. From the outside, it would have looked like you were the reckless one. You were the one making foolish decisions. That appearance was part of phase three. Phase three was reputation. As your resources drained and your stress grew, you became less polished, less patient, more visibly frayed. She captured those moments, emotionally at first, then later in the stories she told others. Subtle comments slipped into conversations. He's under so much pressure. I'm really worried about him. Sometimes he gets so intense, I don't know how to reach him. Spoken with just enough sadness that anyone listening would assume she was the stable one. and you were the storm. By the time she left, people were ready to believe anything she said about you. When she painted you as controlling, unstable, impossible to please, most of her audience already had a mental folder of your worst moments, carefully curated by her months ahead of time. They didn't know those moments had been engineered, provoked at strategic times, magnified, and then retold without the context of manipulation. They saw only the version where you had become someone they barely recognized. What you didn't know until now is that the connection between her and your brother ran deeper than coincidence, even if they never exchanged a word. They were drawing from the same poisoned well. He had already cut your legs out from under you financially. Her mission was to make sure that if you ever stumbled across the truth, no one would take you seriously. It wasn't enough to keep you broke. They needed you to look broken. There is one more layer that will make your stomach drop. Your brother didn't just benefit from the way she hollowed you out. At a certain point, he began to fund it. For the first 6 months, she did what she did for her own reasons, her own appetites, her own emptiness, her own warped belief that power comes from getting close enough to someone's heart to crush it. But even predators sometimes hesitate. Even manipulators feel flickers of conscience they don't know what to do with. When she started to slow down, when she entertained the idea of genuinely loving you instead of leveraging you, a new offer appeared. It didn't come directly from him. It came through someone you both knew, someone who genuinely thought they were bridging two people who could help each other. An opportunity was framed, assistance for her, a quiet gift from a concerned relative who wanted to see you happy, but realistically understood your limitations. The money she accepted to stay in your life longer, to push a little deeper, to finish the job of isolating you and destroying your credibility. It came from the inheritance that was stolen from you. You were financing your own destruction. This is the cruelty of hell. It uses what was meant to bless you as fuel to break you. It takes your portion, feeds it through the hands of a brother you trusted, then routes it into the pockets of someone who weaponized your need for love. And all the while, heaven was watching, not indifferent, not helpless, waiting for a witness to speak, waiting for the right alignment of circumstances, waiting for the exact moment when revealing the full shape of the betrayal would not just hurt you, but heal you by setting you free from self-blame. Right now, as you listen, you might feel rage rising, grief surfacing, nausea twisting in your stomach as puzzle pieces slam into place. Let that happen. Heaven is not afraid of your anger. You are not dishonoring God by finally naming what was done to you. Silence never protected you. It protected those who fed on you. But as this anger rises, there is something else beginning to move, quietly at first. It is not revenge. It is not petty satisfaction at the thought of them getting what they deserve. It is the slow, steady click of a mechanism older than your bloodline, a law written into the fabric of the spiritual realm. Every curse, every theft, every scheme that could not penetrate the shield over your life has been circling with nowhere to land. And now it has only one option left. It must return to the sender. You don't have to push it. You don't have to help it. You don't even have to watch. But you do have to understand what is about to unfold. Because when justice starts moving, if your heart is not anchored correctly, you can get swept into something you were never meant to carry. There is a moment, not far from now, when your brother will receive news that will shatter the illusion he's been living in. There is a day coming soon when the woman will open her phone and watch a version of herself appear in other people's stories that she cannot control or edit. Their falls are already being set up. Pieces are in motion you haven't even glimpsed yet. And in that same window of time, someone else, someone you don't know yet, but who has been walking their own wilderness because of a single conversation they overheard at that family house years ago, is being moved like a knight on a chessboard toward your life. The one you called brother repositioned you downward. The one who wore love as a mask hollowed you out from the inside. Heaven is about to send someone who does the opposite, who lifts, who restores, who confirms with their own story that none of this was random. Long before your enemies drew up their plans, heaven drew up a counter plan that required two people, not one. One who lived your pain from the inside, and one who watched pieces of it from the outside and has been searching for you for a decade. You are standing at the edge of that intersection now. While your brother was rerouting your inheritance on paper, she was already positioning herself to destroy the one thing money couldn't touch: your name. The brother cut your financial legs out from under you. Her job was to make sure that when you tried to stand again, everyone around you believed you were unstable, unreliable, unworthy of trust. She entered your life at exactly the right moment. Not too soon to seem suspicious, not too late to miss the window of vulnerability. Financial strain had already begun to wear on you, had begun to sharpen your edges, had begun to make you question yourself. She saw the cracks and poured herself into them. Isolation came first, but it was surgical. Never overt suggestions to cut people off. That would have raised your defenses. Instead, she planted observations that sounded like wisdom. Your friends don't seem to celebrate your wins. That cousin always changes the subject when you talk about your dreams. I love how you give so much, but some people just take. Each comment was a tiny incision, too small to notice but deep enough to bleed loyalty. You started to agree with her assessments, started to create distance for your own peace, started to rely on her voice as the only one that seemed to truly understand. By the time she had you emotionally isolated, phase 2 began. The slow drain. Never direct asks. That's amateur hour. Crises appeared like clockwork. A sudden car breakdown that insurance wouldn't cover. A family member overseas who needed emergency funds. An investment opportunity she discovered that was too good to pass up. But I need someone I trust to go in with me. Each situation came wrapped in vulnerability, delivered with trembling voice and averted eyes. I hate asking you. You already do so much, but you're the only one who gets it. You stepped in because that's your nature, because love means carrying weight, because you'd been taught that real men provide, protect, make ways when there are none. One wire transfer became 3. 3 became monthly support. Monthly support became your new normal. Your savings vanished. Credit cards maxed. You told yourself it was temporary, that God honors sacrificial giving, that breakthrough was around the corner. She smiled and said all the right things about partnership, about building together, about how she'd make it up to you when things stabilize. What you didn't see was her building a completely separate financial life. Accounts you didn't know about, investments registered in her name only, an exit strategy funded by the very desperation she created in you. Phase 3 was the cleanup, the reputation burn, As the financial pressure mounted and your patience frayed, she began capturing your stress responses, not as moments of human limitation, but as character flaws. Subtle comments to mutual friends. He's been so tense lately, I worry about him. Snippets of conversations shared out of context. He gets really intense when he feels unheard. The fraying you felt became the instability she advertised. When she finally left, the narrative was already written. She didn't have to convince anyone you were the problem. They were pre-sold. Friends who once called to check on you now called to confront you. Family members who should have rallied around you nodded knowingly when she painted you as controlling, paranoid, impossible. "We saw the signs," they said. "We tried to warn her." You stood there, hollowed out financially and now relationally, with no credibility left to tell your side of any story. What you didn't know then, and what heaven is revealing now, is that your brother didn't just benefit from her destruction of you, he funded it. 6 months into her operation, when she hesitated, when something almost human flickered in her toward you, your brother made a move. Not directly, that would leave traces, through a mutual connection who thought they were helping a family situation. A quiet gift from a concerned relative who wanted to see you both happy, but realistically understood the challenges. The money she took to stay in your life longer, to push isolation further, to perfect the reputation destruction. It flowed from the same inheritance he'd stolen from you. You financed your own demolition. Your brother used 3 lines of ink to steal your future, then used fractions of that stolen future to pay someone to make sure you never recovered enough to discover the theft. This is the kind of layered cruelty that only happens when spiritual forces coordinate human agents. They never met, never spoke, never needed to. Same master, same target, same goal. Ensure the chosen one never rises. But here's where their plan contained the fatal flaw they could never see. Every door that slammed in your face wasn't punishment. Every opportunity that evaporated wasn't carelessness. Every wrong timing was deliberate protection. God wasn't withholding. God was redirecting. Because the doors they wanted you to walk through contained landmines they had already planted. Contracts with hidden clauses. Partnerships designed to collapse at your moment of greatest vulnerability. Relationships seeded with future betrayal. While you prayed through tears asking, "Why God?" heaven was moving chess pieces you couldn't see. That very week your brother changed the will. His most trusted business partner stumbled across a discrepancy in the books. Something small, a rounding error, but enough to plant the first seed of doubt. That same month, the woman's first victim, the man she hollowed out before you, started having dreams that wouldn't stop. Dreams where her face appeared next to words like thief and deceiver written in red ink. The witness to your brother's office visit? 3 weeks ago that dream came. Not vague spiritual symbolism. A literal courtroom with your brother's white-knuckled grip on forged papers and a voiceless command. What was signed in darkness will be judged in light. They woke shaking, called a lawyer they barely knew and said, "I saw something 10 years ago. I need to talk to someone who handles inheritance fraud." Across town, the woman's phone started buzzing with messages from people who had been silent for years. Her first victim finally posted. Not a vague sub-tweet, a detailed timeline with dates, amounts, screenshots of wire transfers. Others began adding their stories in the comments. Patterns emerged that couldn't be dismissed as coincidence. All of this was happening while you were still praying for breakthrough, still wondering if God had forgotten you, still blaming yourself for doors that never should have opened in the first place. Heaven wasn't silent. Heaven was staging. Heaven was letting your enemies build their towers high enough that when they fell, no one could pretend it was accident or coincidence. Can you feel that shift happening in the atmosphere around you right now? That stirring deep in your chest, that almost physical sensation of pressure releasing. That's not imagination, that's recognition. Your spirit knows what your mind is only beginning to grasp. The season of sabotage is ending. The mechanism of return has been activated. But before those curses complete their boomerang journey back to sender, before your brother receives the phone call that will unravel his empire, before the woman watches her carefully curated persona disintegrate in real-time notifications, there's one more piece of the puzzle that ties everything together. Someone else heard fragments of that same family blessing 10 years ago. Someone who didn't react with jealousy like your brother, didn't weaponize it like the woman, but recognized it as a signal to begin searching for you. This person, this seeker, overheard enough through thin walls to know two things. Your name carried weight in heaven, and their own assignment was somehow connected to yours. They've been following breadcrumbs ever since. Dreams, word from strangers, impressions too specific to dismiss. 10 years of closed doors on their end too, because what you two carry together threatens something much larger than personal inheritance. They're already in your city, already receiving final instructions, already being positioned for collision course with your life at a specific time and place you can't yet imagine. But that meeting can't happen until the traitors are cleared from the board, until your financial foundation is restored, until your name is cleared. Because divine partnerships don't form between beggars and saviors. They form between equals who both walked through wildernesses that prepared them for the same assignment. The 4 things Jesus did every night before sleep, the practices that kept his spirit untouchable while Judas plotted and Pharisees schemed, are about to be yours. But their full power only activates when combined with the 3 morning practices your seeker has been faithfully doing for a decade without knowing your name. 2 halves, 1 circle. Night protection flows into morning activation, flows into night protection. You're almost ready to receive them. But first, you need to see the spiritual war that raged while you suffered in the physical. Because understanding the battle you survived is what makes the protection you'll soon learn unbreakable. Year 7. The bottle of pills sat on the kitchen table. The one moment when everything could have ended. You had lost the savings, lost the reputation, lost the friends, lost the family's belief. The brother's business thrived while you scraped by. The woman's new life sparkled on social media while mutual contacts sent you screenshots with captions like, "She's thriving now." 7 years of doors slamming, of prayers feeling like they hit a ceiling, of waking up every morning to the same suffocating question, what if this is all there is? That night, you sat staring at those pills, not in a dramatic movie moment way, in the quiet, exhausted, bone-deep certainty that maybe ending it would feel like release. The room felt thick, heavy, like the air itself was pressing you down. Every demon assigned to your destruction gathered. This was their endgame. Suicide doesn't just steal a life. It steals testimony, steals generational impact, steals the very thing heaven invested years of protection to preserve. Then something happened that you couldn't explain. You couldn't move, couldn't reach for the bottle. Your body felt locked in place, not by fear, but by presence. A presence so thick, so undeniable, that rational thought shut down. It wasn't your mother's voice in your head, wasn't a Bible verse flashing on an inner screen. It was cellular knowing. Not like this, not today. Your enemies haven't fallen yet. Your vindication hasn't manifested. You have to stay alive to see it. You put the pills away, went to bed, slept 14 hours straight, the first real sleep in months. When you woke, the suicidal thoughts weren't diminished. They were gone, severed at the root. That was Archangel Michael standing between you and termination of assignment. That was the angelic realm doing what your human eyes couldn't see, severing demonic pipelines, burning legal grounds, drawing lines in the spiritual sand. What you experienced that night wasn't rare spiritual warfare. It was high-level, principality-assigned conflict. The moment your family patriarch spoke blessing over you, demonic alarm systems activated. Principalities that had fed off your bloodline for generations recognized the threat. If you walked fully into that mantle, if you broke the cycles they profited from, their access ended. So they deployed not foot soldiers, but generals. Your brother became Agent 1 because the entry point already existed. Sibling comparison. That ancient fracture point demons have exploited since Genesis 4. The Spirit didn't create his jealousy. It amplified what was already there, spoke to it nightly. You're older, more faithful, more practical. If you don't protect what's yours, he'll take it all. Your brother didn't recognize the foreign voice. He agreed. Agreement handed over legal ground. The woman was Agent 2, deployed for relational destruction. Her assignment wasn't financial. That was your brother's territory. Hers was credibility. Even if you discovered the will forgery, no one would believe a man whose ex had convinced everyone he was unstable. She studied you first, learned your patterns, your wounds, your deep ache to be seen, timed her entrance perfectly for maximum vulnerability. They operated independently but under unified command. Never met, never spoke, same master, same target, surgical precision. Your brother cut financial legs. She destroyed the foundation so you couldn't stand even if the money returned. Perfect coordination from the unseen realm. While these human agents executed physical assignments, Michael maintained containment. Every time your brother's sabotage should have been fatal, redirection happened. The contract that would have bankrupted you got lost in paperwork. The partnership that contained sabotage clauses fell apart randomly. Every time her manipulation should have led to total relational annihilation, just enough remained. A single friend who stayed quiet but never endorsed her narrative. A family member who never fully bought the unstable story. Every night while you slept, literal battle occurred. Demons pounding against angelic shields, trying to plant nightmares of failure, whispering, "Give up. End it. No one cares." Angels countering with truth declarations you couldn't hear but felt in your bones. This is why one of the 4 things Jesus did before sleep matters so desperately. It activated angelic protection that allowed physical rest even during spiritual warfare. The suicide night was their final major offensive. Every principality assigned to your bloodline gathered, knowing this was their last real chance. Michael didn't just block, he counterattacked, severed access, burned contracts, left you with unshakable knowing that this isn't over. From that moment forward, even though circumstances stayed dark, internal certainty anchored you. You survived not by willpower, but by heavenly intervention. Now you understand the war you survived. Now you're ready to grasp how curses return, not as magic, but as unbreakable spiritual law. When someone speaks a curse over a protected life, through words, rituals, sustained jealousy, sabotage, that energy doesn't vanish. It must land somewhere. If the target carries covenant covering, walks in divine assignment, maintains basic spiritual alignment, that curse circles like a predator seeking vulnerability. When no legal ground exists, it has one destination: sender. This isn't wishful thinking, it's physics, spiritual physics. Proverbs 6:31 declares the thief must restore sevenfold. The energy compounds during transit. What your brother sent returns multiplied. What the woman released rebounds amplified. Your brother's phone rang at 4:47 a.m. yesterday. He fumbled for it, bleary-eyed, hoping for business. Instead, your primary accounts are frozen pending investigation. Call back immediately. Click. The partner who'd been quietly investigating funding sources finally connected enough dots. The rounding errors from years ago, now they're fraud allegations, investors pulling out. The empire he built on stolen foundation shakes. The woman's phone won't stop buzzing. Her first victim posted, not vaguely, dates, amounts, wire transfer screenshots. Others pile on. Patterns emerge that can't be coincidence. Friends unfollowing, speaking in hushed tones. Her carefully curated persona fractures in real-time notifications. The isolation she perfected on you now surrounds her. The credibility destruction she mastered now targets her. Both feel it, though they won't name it yet. Nightmares intensify, sleep fractures, deals collapse. Health declines. They want to blame economy, politics, bad luck. But deep down, recognition stirs. This feels familiar. This feels like what we did to him. You don't have to lift a finger. Don't have to post victory declarations. Don't have to call contacts gloating. Your peace amid their chaos testifies louder than any public statement. Silence becomes your greatest weapon. Let them wonder. Let them question. Let them feel the weight of their own returns. But before their fall's complete and your restoration manifests, one final piece connects. 10 years ago, someone else overheard fragments of that patriarch blessing. Not your brother in the hallway. Someone in another room through thin walls, catching enough to receive their own assignment. Find this person. The seeker began their search that day, not with jealousy, not with schemes, with obedience to a vision. 2 scarred hands reaching across a chasm, one holding a key, the other empty but marked by suffering. A voice declared, "When these join, doors open no man can shut." They've followed breadcrumbs ever since. Dreams showing street corners, strangers mentioning your city, impressions too specific to ignore. 10 years of their own wilderness, lost business, broken marriage, unexplained illness, because heaven was refining both of you simultaneously. 2 anointings, separate wildernesses, same destination. 3 weeks ago, Michael appeared to the seeker. Same flaming sword, same authority. 7 words. The wait is over. Go now. Plane ticket purchased. Hotel booked. Final instructions downloading daily. They're in your city, positioned for collision. But the timing is surgical. Your enemies fall first, clearing the board for partnership. Why 2 people? Because your assignment requires dual anointing. You carry suffering's authority, discernment forged in betrayal, demon recognition earned through sabotage. They carry prophetic mapping, territorial insight, spiritual architecture, root revelation. Together you break generational curses feeding principalities for over a century. Your brother stole physical inheritance. The real prize was spiritual inheritance requiring 2 keys. That's why the resistance was so brutal, why the wilderness lasted so long, why heaven protected you through suicide's doorstep. One person carries half the frequency. 2 people together create resonance that shatters iron gates. The 4 nighttime practices Jesus guarded. Your seeker implemented them instinctively during their wilderness, speaking protection over you before knowing your name. The 3 morning activations, you'll learn them together. Night protection flows into morning declaration flows into unbreakable cycle. The coffee shop collision happens tomorrow, 10 a.m., 4th Street. You'll feel inexplicable compulsion to go there despite no money for luxuries. They'll receive identical prompting. Eyes meet. Instant spiritual recognition. Documents exchanged. Assignment activated. But between now and that meeting, heaven needs you anchored with understanding of the war you survived and the law now working on your behalf. 10 a.m., 4th Street coffee shop. The collision happens now. You walk in feeling foolish. Coffee shops aren't in your budget anymore. But this morning's impression felt different, unignorable. Go, 4th Street, 10 a.m. No explanation, no rational reason, just compulsion too strong to dismiss. You order black coffee, the cheapest thing, scan for an empty seat. Your eyes lock with theirs across the room. Not romantic recognition, deeper, ancient, like 2 pieces of divided machinery suddenly clicking into their designed alignment. The seeker sits by the window, folder on the table, tea steaming untouched. Their expression mirrors yours. Shock, relief. The cellular finally neither of you knew you carried. You walk toward the table. No conscious decision. Your feet move before your brain catches up. "I've been looking for you," they say, voice trembling but certain. 10 years. You sit. Coffee shakes in your hand. "We've never met. How?" They slide the folder across. Open it. Inside, copies of the original will, the patriarch's signature, the 3 unaltered lines routing inheritance to you, side-by-side comparison with your brother's forgery, witness affidavits, timeline, lawyer correspondence dated 3 days ago, proof, tangible, undeniable, 10 years of gaslighting shattered in one manila folder. Your hands shake so violently coffee spills across the table. This proves everything. Tears burn before you can stop them. Not sadness, vindication. The moment every dismissed suspicion, every "you're paranoid" lecture, every family argument defending your brother disintegrates. You survived, the seeker says, hand steady over yours. What was meant to bury you forged the authority you carry now. We break the curse together. Your voice cracks. What curse? Generational. Poverty that wasn't laziness. Betrayal cycling through bloodlines. Doors sealed by spiritual interference, not lack of talent. Your anointing breaks it. Mine maps it. Together we shatter what one person couldn't touch. They lean forward. But first, protection. The 7 practices, 4 Jesus did nightly, 3 morning activations. Implement these and no curse penetrates again. You nod, ready. They've waited 10 years to deliver this. Night practices first. Jesus did these every night, even betrayal night. Practice 1. Forgive one person aloud. Name them. I forgive name and release them to God's justice. Not because they deserve it, because unforgiveness grants demons sleep access. One person nightly, same person 100 nights if needed. Your brother flashes first, then her. then the family who believed their lies. Practice 2. Thank God for one pain from today. Father, I thank you for specific hurt, because you work all things for good. Reprograms victim mentality. Turns suffering into spiritual currency. The financial wilderness, the isolation, the suicide doorstep. You'll learn gratitude there. Practice 3. Ask for tomorrow's revelation. Father, show me one truth about tomorrow night. Activates prophetic dreams, trap warnings, opportunity glimpses, people discernment. Practice 4. The unbreakable seal, hand on heart. Exact words. Father, I see you in darkness. You see me. We are one. Jesus spoke this before Gethsemane, before Calvary. Declares union when circumstances scream abandonment. You whisper it. Father, I see you in darkness. Something shifts, locks. Morning triad activates what night sealed. Morning 1. Within 7 minutes of waking mirror. Eyes locked with yours. 3 times. Full name. You are chosen. Called. Protected. Announces identity to spirit realm before enemy attacks. Morning 2. Protection before people. I cover this day in Jesus' blood. Enemy doors shut. Heaven doors accessible. No weapon formed prospers. Sets boundaries before battle begins. Morning 3. We do together daily. 10 a.m. sharp. 60 seconds. Curse broken. Bloodline clean. Doors open. Assignment active. Unified prayer creates resonance. Heaven responds to agreement. You feel it building. When do we start? Now, they say. 3 days from today. Patriarch's grave. Dawn. We speak the curse broken where blessing was first corrupted. Your phone buzzes. Lawyer text. Brother settled. Full inheritance. Plus 10 years interest. Check next week. It's over. Exactly as you finished hearing practice 7. Laughter breaks. Relief, not cruelty. Text timing confirms spiritual authority activated. The curse already cracking. You leave agreeing to meet at 5 a.m. 3 days hence. Drive home lighter than in a decade. That night, first full implementation. Forgive your brother aloud. Thank God for the forgery's pain. Ask tomorrow's dream. Hand on heart. Father, I see you. Sleep comes instant, deep, dreamless. First restoration in years. Dawn, day 3. Cemetery silent except you two. Each holds paper scripted with declarations. Air thickens as you read unified. By Jesus' blood, generational poverty breaks. By Jesus' authority, betrayal cycles shatter. Bloodline cleansed. Spiritual doors that demonic hands sealed. Open now. Atmosphere rips. Physical snap heard by both. Chains don't metaphorically break. You hear them fracture. Phone buzzes walking back to car. Investment offer. Impossible timing. Old friend apology text. Learn truth about her. I'm sorry. First fruits. Next 30 days transform everything. Sleep heals. Dreams warn of traps. Illuminate paths. Discernment surgical. Spot manipulators in first conversation. Doors fly open. Resources manifest. Brother's empire collapsed. Her reputation, pattern exposed, community turned. 6 months later, your brother appears at your door, not demanding. Broken. I was wrong. Everything. Genuine repentance, not manipulation. You choose mercy, not reconciliation, but release. Help him find work elsewhere. Forgiveness isn't weakness when it flows from authority. The woman? Year later. Full ownership. No excuses. You release her too. Carrying their debt poisons your future. You choose freedom. Now you and Seeker break curses citywide. Cousins experience breakthroughs. Nieces gain impossible scholarships. Ripple expands. One bloodline's obedience shifts regional spiritual atmosphere. The 7 practices, non-negotiable daily. Miss one night, vulnerability returns. Skip one morning, protection thins. Consistency compounds. 30 days shifts, 90 days breaks. Year-long obedience, unrecognizable life. Your wilderness wasn't punishment, preparation. Every closed door protected. Every betrayal forged discernment. Every suicide temptation tested resolve. Every tear positioned authority. The 2 minutes Archangel Michael announced. Extended for everyone hearing this who receives the 7 practices. Curses returning now, enemies falling now, partners arriving now, inheritance manifesting now, tonight. 4 practices, tomorrow morning. 3 practices, 30 days, your story rewrites.